Back here on CBS Sports HQ, we have arrived at week 10 in the NFL. So that means it's time to really buckle up and try to win your league. I'm sitting at 3-6, I think. I don't know.
You're done. You're toast.
I don't know if winning the league is in the cards for me, but use that hashtag AskFFT. And these guys, Jamey, Dave, and Heath, are going to help you win your league. Take it away, fellas.
That's our goal, is to help you win your league. We try to do that every time we're out here. But, last week for me, for example, not great with the start of the week. Kamani Vidal was just absolutely awful, only 3 fantasy points. So let's have some redemption. Let's go to a guy who's sort of redeeming himself for the Giants and keeping them afloat a little bit in games, certainly helping fantasy managers, and that's Jackson Dart. So we'll call it the Dart of the week. So hopefully he comes through with a big game. Top 6 quarterback for me for this week. Love the setup for him taking on the Bears. They just got absolutely abused by Joe Flacco, but I don't think it's going to be the same type of performance. I don't think Dart goes for over 400 passing yards. However, 4 quarterbacks this season have been over 26 fantasy points against Chicago. Dart has been great with his legs. 55 rushing yards or a touchdown in all 6 of his starts. 21 or more fantasy points in 5 of those 6. His worst game was 19 points. I think it's going to be a big performance for him taking on this Bears defense. I would like to see that Darius Slayton touchdown that's been missing each of the last 2 weeks. Had one called back to the penalty, one that Slayton dropped. But Wan'Dale Robinson, Slayton, Theo Johnson, lack of a run game. His legs have been fantastic. It seems like we're all on board. Dave, you like him as a top 5 guy?
Absolutely. I think the rushing floor helps him out quite a bit. That's helped him in every single game this year. Chicago's pass rush hasn't been good at all. Their secondary is beat up. We saw 3 different wide receivers get 17 PPR points against Chicago last week. And that was Cincinnati. I don't think he throws as much as Joe Flacco does. You kind of referenced that. But I think he's in for one of his best games of the year.
I think you could start both Giants wide receivers potentially, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
But
it's that
the
kind
Bears,
of week,
my favorite stat that I've been tracking because it just keeps going up, 2.21 fantasy points per target allowed to wide receivers this year. Wan'Dale Robinson's averaging 8 targets per game. Darius Slayton's averaging 7. You can do the math, start them both.
Let's go from the Dart of the week to some other starts for week number 10 for me, and I like a couple of Browns. Yes, I like the Browns. So if you like the Giants, why not just throw the Browns in there as well? So you got Quinshon Judkins and Harold Fannin Jr., along with Matthew Stafford, Romeo Doubs, and Quentin Johnson. In the case of the Browns, I actually was considering Quinshon Judkins as a start of the week, but a little bit concerned about the shoulder injury coming into the week. He seems like he's going to be fine, and now he's taking on a Jets run defense that was already number 11 in most fantasy points allowed to opposing running backs, and now you take Quentin Williams off the field. So they're going to get worse, and we've seen Judkins 4 of his last 5 games over 13 PPR points. I think he gets into that range, if not more. He's going to be the catalyst of this offense. But if they are forced to throw, we've seen Harold Fannin and David Njoku. I think you can start both tight ends this week. But in the case of Fannin, he's been 11 or more PPR points in 3 of his last 4 games. He's been a go-to guy for Dylan Gabriel. So has Njoku, 13 or more fantasy points in 2 of his last 3. Again, the Jets lose Williams. They lose Sauce Gardner. This is a team that's clearly in rebuild mode. So I think we could see some success for all of the Browns, at least the relevant ones, which would be Quinshon Judkins, Harold Fannin, and maybe a little bit of David Njoku. All right, Dave, who do you got to start for week 10?
How about 2 running backs? And this is a crazy week for running backs. And when I say crazy, I mean crappy. You've got your studs, and then you've got everybody else. Last week was kind of the same thing. And we saw Travion Henderson get a lot of touches, 18 touches for the Patriots. He only got around 12 PPR points. That was good enough for 15th among running backs last week. So basically any running back that's got a chance to score a touchdown or get 15 plus carries, I think they're in line to be at least number 2 fantasy running backs. And both Henderson and David Montgomery have the chance to do that. I love Montgomery's matchup. Don't really love Henderson's matchup as much, but it's just the opportunity. I don't think he's going to lose any bit of his role. You just have to make sure Ramondre Stevenson does not play. If Stevenson plays for the Patriots, then Henderson does have to have dialed back expectations.
The thing that I like for Henderson, role in the passing game, 6 running backs this season have been at least 7.1 PPR points or more with just the receiving totals alone against Tampa Bay.
Oh,
so
yeah.
if that's the floor,
he should absolutely hit.
If that's the floor, it should be pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, Heath, who do you like for week 10?
I like the Bucks. Coming off the bye, no Mike Evans, no Chris Godwin, most likely. He's still not practicing yet, at least as of Wednesday. Tez Johnson, at least at 9.7 projected. He's had at least 9.4 in each of his last 4 games, averaging 12 PPR fantasy points per game over that stretch. Cade Otton, at least 8 PPR fantasy points in his last 4 games, at least 11 in 3 of those 4 games. These guys are both startable options. Otton as a low-end tight end 1, Tez as a low-end wide receiver 2. And I just want to say to Jacqueline, you're not out of it at 3-6. The start of the week's won, 2 games this year, the Giants? The Browns have won 1 or 2 games this year. We're starting those guys. Jacqueline's going to make a run.
She may or may not have blamed you for her struggles, just indirectly.
You know, I used to talk to her every Friday, and this year I think I've only talked to her on 2 or 3 Fridays. She did well last year. She's doing bad this year. I don't think it's on me.
Okay, so maybe a little bit misinformation on Jacqueline's part. Let's go now from the starts to the sits, and some guys that I would like to avoid for this week. 2 in particular, Alvin Kamara and DK Metcalf. Looking at Kamara, it's just been a very frustrating season, and this is actually one of his more favorable matchups. But he's been 6.5 PPR points or less in 3 straight games. Hasn't scored a touchdown since week 1. I don't know what the Saints are doing. They actually activated Audric Estime to play in this game. Are they going to give him an extra look? We know Devin Neal's been getting some opportunities. Taysom Hill's been getting some goal line chances. This is just a bad offense that lost one of his key players in Rashid Shaheed. So play the Panthers DST, try to avoid Alvin Kamara. It's a little bit harder to avoid DK Metcalf, but 2 of his last 3 games, he's been absolutely miserable. And now he's taking on a Chargers defense number 3 in fewest fantasy points allowed to opposing wide receivers. They've only allowed 4 touchdowns to wide receivers on the season, and Metcalf has proven to be touchdown dependent. Only 1 game this season where he's been in double digits in PPR without scoring a touchdown. That was week 1. He had 4 catches for 83 yards. The expectations for DK Metcalf should be dialed back. He is probably still going to be in a lot of starting lineups because of the week, but I think at least for me, treating him more as a number 3 wide receiver as opposed to a must-start guy. Dave, who are you looking to avoid this week?
That looked like my stock portfolio just then with DK Metcalf. How about 2 quarterbacks that I'm just not feeling? Daniel Jones kind of on the fence for me as a top 12-ish quarterback, but I'm going to say he's not a top 12 guy. And then Jordan Love, who has a tough matchup against Philly and an improving Eagles defense. With Jones, he's taking on a Falcons defense that blitzes at the highest rate, top 10 in pass rush pressure rate, top 12 in sacks. That was a bad omen for Daniel Jones last week. I am worried about it this week. Plus, we didn't see Jonathan Taylor do much of anything last week. I think the Colts reverse course. They run the ball a little bit more, kind of take some pressure off of Daniel Jones in this matchup against Atlanta. So I'm trying to get Jones out of lineups. There are a bunch of quarterbacks, including Baker Mayfield, who I like better than Daniel Jones. And with Jordan Love, pass rush pressure has been a problem for him. Listen to these numbers. 0 touchdowns when he's been pressured this year. A 37.7% completion rate when pressured. Philly just traded for Jalen Phillips. He knows this scheme very well. I think Philadelphia takes it to Jordan Love, even though they're on the road. I don't want Love in my lineup.
No Tucker Kraft either, so
that's a problem.
Losing a big piece of the passing game there. All right, Heath, last but not least, who are we sitting?
As bad as the running back position is, I don't want to start R.J. Harvey, who has scored 5 touchdowns in his last 3 games. That probably doesn't make any sense, except for the fact that he has 20 touches in those 3 games combined. We like running backs who get 20 touches in 1 game. He has only 1 game this season with double-digit touches. You can't rely on him to continue to score like he has. Sit R.J. Harvey.
The only benefit that I see to this, and I don't disagree completely, but the last 2 times they've been heavy favorites at home and have won, Cincinnati and Dallas, is when he's had his best games. They're 9.5-point favorites at home tonight, so we could see maybe a little additional touches for him, so we'll see what goes on there for Harvey. But yes, probably better to sit him than start him. All right, that'll do it for us here. Jacqueline, back to you.
All right, I don't like the accusations that are being thrown out about me, Chris. I spoke with Heath like 3 times, but I will take full responsibility that I am the reason why.
Wait, you're blaming it on Heath?
No, I wasn't. I was just saying he is who I was going to for questions.
Wow.
But it's on me. I take responsibility. FFT, here are the guys
sound like
there.
you're taking responsibility.
No, I am. I really am. Watch the guys right now on Fantasy Football Today. Scan that QR code.